Like, a lot of the green growth.
Certain metropolis made it very lively.
It was the most debated topic.
Several seconds.
But I did, how many 3-minute comments were there? I know it's good. That was good. That was good.
You also could have pointed to 5 boards you didn't apply to. I'll tell you.
Okay. Just tell me. Please tell me they're all different jobs. Let me get my answer.
One's assisting Joe on a day-to-day basis.
Oh, God. It's funny.
Got a sewer break right now.
Oh, the sewer's so important. There's revenue comes about sewer. It's not. I like that.
Bring that up before about it. It makes me feel good.
I'm like, I didn't think I was a good student. I'm
You
not
were.
worried. Like, if you gotta be there for you.
Probably actually.
I started dancing my guitar too.
Fucking all over Geneva.
Okay, I'll start by a song. My songs are terrible.
Flowers.
That's yes.
And everyone's gonna.
Oh, I know.
Sorry.
You see it on my phone, it's like, oh, sure I did, yeah. Broccoli is one of the one year now, it's walking like this. It's all good, well, it's sold for this.
Like, yeah, that's. And it works at my house. My one having fellow was pretty here. My date texted Arnie. But she.
So it might just have to record it.
Is it recording?
No, I'm gonna record.
She loves.
Morning.
Morning.
How's it going?
Good, how are you guys?
Great, thanks. What you call them? Yeah.
Okay, so I just, I'm gonna save this for the record here. I set up the YouTube channel yesterday. Everything was working fine on my computer, and now apparently they're not correct permissions over here on this computer. So I'm not going to mess with it since we're already at 7:35, and then I will post this to YouTube after our meeting.
So to be clear, it is recorded and it will be posted and anyone can watch.
Exactly. It is recorded. It will be posted. Anyone can watch. I'll make sure that I send that information out to everybody. As this is informational, and we're not taking comments anyway, I think that we can be in by my comments. Thanks.
Said you were gonna send out to everybody,
Yes,
so basically, you're not open for questions.
correct.
You-
So this information session that will begin at 8 o'clock is for the board of directors and to clear up misinformation that's been circulating and give Lakeview a chance to present their project to the board here. We can, and then the board can share that information and that all of downtown can have a better understanding of what the project is. Mark, sorry, I took your thunder. I'll let you go ahead and do the same thing again.
Yeah, that isn't pretty much what I was going to say. Is we had guests and there seems to be confusion as to what the bid is. An improvement district is like a water district, a sewer district, lighting, fire protection. We provide a service. The service we provide is to make the downtown district more visitor friendly, more attractive. So we supply a little more service than the city does. It's not the same service because we don't pay an assessment just to get the same thing everyone else gets. So we do a little better job with the weeding of the flower gardens, the hanging of decorations, that sort of thing. We have no formal role in land use planning. We don't do site plan approval. We don't do environmental reviews. We're not holding a public hearing. Kathy Lovejoy agreed to come and give us information on what's happening because asked volunteers here who care about the community were interested. So she kindly agreed to come and talk to us. Again, it's not a public hearing, so we won't be taking comments. And in case things get a little rambunctious, for the board itself, normally I run it pretty loose. But supposedly you have to wait till I recognize you, ask a question. If it's polite and not a statement, I will pass it on to Ms. Lovejoy. Otherwise, that's it until everyone who wants to speak gets a chance, and I'll call on you again. With that nasty thing, I guess I'm done. Secretary's report?
Did everybody get a chance?
Oh, excuse me, I never called a meeting to order.
We're good now.
Yes.
Get a chance to peruse the minutes from April. Anybody have anything they want to say about that or potential changes to the minutes? Then we can make a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Is there any discussion? All in favor?
You know, Tom to correct. this.
Yeah, we don't.
I'm gonna fix it.
All in favor?
Uh,
Opposed? Abstentions? Oh, that was fast and easy. Treasurer's report.
Treasury report. April was a quieter month. We had the beautification start to the show for the flower pot rental. We've been more activity in May. Does anybody have any questions?
Well, we are whipping right along.
It was their best behavior.
I scared you, didn't I? Yes, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? We got one. Okay, the executive director's report.
Okay, so, well, everybody had a copy of the report. If you have, does anyone have any questions about the report that I sent to you all? No? Okay, just highlight to point out to you. Geneva, the flower basket fundraiser was a success. We only sold 30 of the baskets. We donated one of the baskets, and the other 4 are going to be disassembled and put in planters. Earth Planter was kind enough to reduce the price on that one planter for us so that we were successful. So we ordered that planter, and then Geneva Community Projects reached out to me and wanted to sponsor 2 more planters. We're getting plaques made for them. We have ordered them already as well. And they, again, are going to go on gateway entrances along 5 and 20. There is one thing that I did not put in my report that I'd like us to discuss. So as you know, we've been working with Rochester Accessible Adventures and the New York State Canal Corporation to do an accessibility assessment for downtown. And we've been working with the city, DPW. Thank you so much, Joe, for sending your team over to us, and the rec department. And one of the things that they'd like to see is a commitment towards accessibility for downtown. So I'd like to propose that we change our vision statement from creating a vibrant storefront-filled epicenter of networking, marketing, promotion, events, and beautification. The bid stands committed to make Geneva stand out and be the true destination of the Finger Lakes region. Let's put accessibility in there. So create a vibrant, accessible storefront-filled epicenter of networking, etc. This way, we can show them that we're committed and that we're moving forward. We did receive a proposal for the accessible kayak launch for the lakefront. I'll be having meetings this week to make sure that we are good to go, and we'll apply for the New York Power Authority grant to fund this.
Where's that gonna go?
Do you know where the kayak rental was last year? And then the dock where tour boats go? It's going to be behind that in the sheltered area right there. So it actually does fall into the lakefront improvement district area,
Lakefront, what,
waterfront.
revitalization,
Yeah,
LRAP, LWR.
yeah. So it falls within that category, and we'll be looking to see if we can't wrap that into the proposal that the city is working with.
That's not inside of where the marina may or may not go, so it's not impacting that final decision.
Correct.
May I comment?
Yes.
I think it's really appropriate to add accessible, given the grants we are going for, given our mission and vision. I appreciate that it's in our vision because it's aspirational. It's something we're going to continue to pursue and work towards, as opposed to in our mission that we have to immediately make changes and do now. We can grow into this and continue to pursue it.
The only comment I would have is it sounded like you were saying we're making accessible storefronts.
We can't.
So I'm going to interrupt Charlie because that is not correct. There will be grants available so that we can have folding ramps, like Provisions already has one and Table already has one. And the goal is to write grants to provide our storefronts with steps in the front so that wheelchair access is possible.
So my thought is accessibility is much bigger than storefronts when we talk about a vibrant downtown.
Yes.
That's why I was just a little confused if what you're trying to say is accessibility to all or accessibility to storefronts. And that's just hearing it read.
Ah, yes.
So
Okay.
we have either a comma issue or we have, and that's like the least favorite part of nonprofit management for me is fighting over commas. But the other place it could go is under Geneva stand out and be the true accessible destination of the Finger Lakes.
I think that's just,
I love that too.
and I share the comma.
Yeah.
dislike, but I also know that someone will point.
And are
out
we
the
Oxford? Are we not Oxford? Oh, go ahead. Let me think something now. So what do we think about to amend?
To amend, so it would say the bid stands committed to make Geneva stand out as an accessible to all and stand out.
Stand out and be the true accessible destination of the Finger
Oh,
Lakes.
there we go. Okay, so the Geneva Business Improvement District stands committed to make Geneva stand out and be the accessible to all true destination of the Finger Lakes.
That's fine.
Period.
Period at the end. That's the second clause of provision.
And I should point out, we never had a motion, so we don't have to amend the motion that wasn't made.
Yeah, right. That's true.
Any other discussion of the motion that hasn't been made yet?
May
The
I?
motion.
Yeah, I'm glad to make that motion.
Okay.
No, let me read it. All right, I think I got it. To amend our vision to read, create a vibrant storefront-filled epicenter of networking, marketing, promotion, events, and beautification. The bid stands committed to make Geneva stand out as accessible to all and be the true destination of the Finger Lakes region. Ah, so close, the region I muttered.
Yeah.
My mother was a kindergarten teacher. Period.
So a motion has been made. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? We are really moving. Okay, city report.
City report, if I'm punchy, it's because we had a long meeting last night. But last night was on 2026 budget, getting priorities from city council, and attempting to make them coalesce into one budget vision. I will say the budget meeting is online. You will see there is not one collective vision from council. There were 8 members there. There are probably 8 visions and they contradict each other quite a bit. With that being said, I think Adam and I have some direction of areas that we will start. Departments have already started their budget process and we'll be working with the bid to start theirs. We're looking at reduction in total amount of funding available for a variety of reasons. I can send Catherine, I can send you the budget presentation, the link to that, so you should share it.
You actually did.
Did I? Oh yeah, I did that. And I also didn't delay send. You could tell how tired I was because it said good morning.
In there.
9 o'clock. So the budget presentation is there. You can share that with the board. Other things coming up, we have a meeting next week, following a meeting that community meeting that Home Leasing is having a meeting at the library at 5:30. 5:30 next Wednesday to discuss their project, which is on Jackson Street. And co-design that project with the community as part of that. The architects will be there to help the development of that one. But following that will be council. There's a public hearing for a property sale on Conover Street. Mostly it's a paper street next to Conover, the street to nowhere, down by the lake. So council will be looking at selling that parcel. They may also be setting a public hearing for a parcel that was previously leased to own but never completed, which is located next to the the Crafter Factory. So those two proposals will be coming forward. And I think that is all that I know that's on the agenda. There will be some discussion on code enforcement, I believe, as well. And last night they did approve a public hearing for the BEST program, formerly the MAP program, as well as a resolution regarding CDBG funds. The federal government has moved to cut all CDBG funds. So the resolution basically asks them not to do that. It was, a formality from city council. For current year, this current New York State calendar year, which is not calendar year, but 25 to 26, they do have federal dollars because of how the flow of money happens. So the cuts would occur to CDBG programs for New York State next year, so 26, 27. But we do rely on those funds for quite a few programs throughout the city, and that could be very impactful. I think that's all that I have right now. Lots going on at planning board and zoning board with some of these projects that are coming to fruition.
Thank you. Any questions for her? Yes.
Can you give us an update on the marina? I think we talked about that a little bit of governance.
Yes, so the marina project, Joe's here, but I will give you the update. I probably have Joe. We did go back out to rebid on the marina, and what we're looking at is not a full marina, but something to improve accessibility into the lakefront, which would be a phased approach to a future marina should we choose to go in that direction. Council will discuss that next Wednesday as well. That will be added to the agenda. They did get one rebid for that project. Came in at 3.8 million. And we have already bonded for that and have state grant that would also support that. So council will look at what that project would do to improve accessibility. It would also go towards repairs on Long Pier. And Joe, you could talk more about.
Yeah, the restoration of the existing 600-foot long pier. And then the proposal was to do a 300-foot, basically L-shaped pier extension out to the lake that would go towards the east, towards the Ramada, or 41 lakefront, I'm sorry. But no extra docks, or the floating dock part of it, the actual marina concept of it was taken out of the rebid package to reduce scope to meet what funds were available.
Got a follow-up question. So my understanding is that when you originally got this passed by a previous council, the thought or hope was that some of the bonding costs that be recurring over what decades would be offset by some marina fees. Now, if I'm correct, there wouldn't be any money coming in. Do you have a guesstimate of roughly how much the bond is going to cost taxpayers on a monthly basis? And for how many years?
Yeah, so it would be, the bonds are typically 20 years. And so it would overlap. So there would be a new one that would go out this year. So it would be over the course of probably 25 years with some overlap there. And the way we figure the bonds is about, for every million is about 100,000 a year.
So do the math for us. What's that come out to?
Yeah, so it would be 100,000 a year basically for each million. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah. And again, how many million?
Oh, so we bonded for, let's see, we did 2 at first, and then the next one was like 1.5.
It's not just the marina project in that though, because
Right.
there's two. I would say the marina project, so when we bonded for all of the revitalization at the lakefront at once. So Lake Tunnel, other projects are in that bond. So that's why Adam's having a little difficulty figuring out. I would say probably just the marina portion, you're looking at 150,000 maybe a year until the overlap, and then you might have a little bit more
Yeah,
that year.
then you would have more of 200 to 250 probably for those years.
But they're slight because we bonded for the initial bond and ban years ago for all of the other improvements. When we had anticipated, you have to remember this project started in 2016 and then there were all the delays due to environmental reviews and whatnot and the pandemic.
Right.
I feel like I keep using that as an excuse, but that was a big part of this project.
Right. So we've been paying for it for some time now.
10 years.
10 years, yeah.
Yeah, next year will be.
Does that count out of the 25 or is it 25 going
Yeah,
forward?
that counts.
Okay.
Yeah.
So not 25 going forward, 20
Yep.
years.
Yep.
Thank you.
I didn't realize we were almost a third of the way through the expense.
Yeah, happened fast.
Any other questions for the city? Okay, executive committee. Well, we discussed long-term planning a little bit. One of the things that came up is we've had more grants this year than we were anticipating receiving. Catherine was kind of buried. Craig and I agreed to help her out with some of the reporting. And the reporting will also go past my time in office here. So if Craig takes my seat, then
Be an honor.
yes, we don't want to give the money back. It's important work that we want to do. So
So, what Mark isn't saying is something that I didn't, it happened last night. We received a grant for, birding along the lakefront. So it's $38,000, for us to improve lakefront habitats, provide more plants along the lakefront that will, be accommodating to birds, and work with birding groups, primarily out of Canandaigua. Hopefully we're gonna have some here. And they'll come in and we'll provide some signage there by the plants to let people know that this is a bird habitat and why it's bird habitat, and then they'll give tours. Hopefully we'll have a self-guided walking tour that we can,
I have a wonderful professor named Mark Deutschlander who would be glad to probably help you. He teaches a first year seminar on birds.
Yeah, those are, they actually, when we were writing the grant, we reached out to them and they were very excited and all on board with us doing this. So,
James Norwalk is known as the tree guy, but he's really an ornithologist.
Yeah, it's true.
right.
It's true.
The Dr. Mark,
Deutschlander. I'll send you his info.
Okay.
Yeah, and I only laughed because yesterday we thought you didn't get that grant
I know,
and you were okay with that because of all of the grants and
Your game.
and
here's
then,
another.
and then that's, yes. So I did, I was like, thank God we didn't get that grant. I don't know how I would manage it. And then we got the grant within 4 hours of that comment.
there was
So,
a little moment of panic.
yeah.
Where's the improvement going to be? I mean, you can't put, a bunch of trees and bushes in front of the visitors center.
Oh, no. So it's like in some of the areas where the ground, the rocks are already there. Hopefully we can put some milk thistle down there, because birds love that. And then it's plants that have we'll be replacing plants that have been damaged or destroyed since the lakefront was put in. So we'll be able to rebuild the beds that are already there. It funds for those plants. And really it's our lakefront planting is progressive already. So it already has a lot of these plants. So it's just going to be tweaking a little bit. And of course we'll work with DPW before we, and the city before we start making any changes. Or Joe knows where I live.
Down to the non-beach beach down there, or is that not area that we're allowed to?
We are, yep. Any part of the lakefront. Mhm.
That
I may want to clarify that the section that I think you're referring to
I call it Jennings Beach.
past the tunnel is DOT property. It's
Yes.
not the city's property.
Yes. So can we do anything on there or not?
I would say the DPW cannot, but I don't know about VA.
Yeah. And I mean, that's one of the things that like I didn't realize. So before we do anything, we'll be working with the city team to make sure that we're staying within our bounds.
Yeah.
And or asking people, the right people, permissions.
Yeah, and the DEC is going to be.
Right.
Can you send us your grant application just so we can
Absolutely.
review it?
Yep.
Great.
Yeah, I did talk to, I think I might have talked to you a little bit when I was writing it. I know I talked to Tim Higgins a little bit when I was writing it. So we wanted to make sure that we weren't including anything that we shouldn't include. Yep.
And I don't know, if the DEC is amenable to it and is willing to write a contract that where you see a benefit and the town or city sees a benefit, it would be possible. You may not have the manpower, though. It's not a legal problem.
Yeah, jurisdictional, liability is the biggest concern.
Yep.
It's not our property. And it is, underneath the railroad, of course, it's restricted space, trespassing from Norfolk Southern, so. Have to be very careful in that area, but.
Yeah, we don't want to offend anyone, so we won't.
Yep. And there's also money in the grant to fix up any birdhouses that are down at the lakefront. So. Yeah. Yes.
There you go.
There are 170 birds that come to this north end of Seneca Lake. Yeah, we're one of, because we're so, I think it's partially because we're so close to Montezuma. We are a bird watchers haven.
I recently had pictures sent to me of the green heron that stays there. Didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah.
Apparently there's one that hangs out at the.
Mhm. Yep.
The other thing the executive committee talked about was an upcoming summer meeting.
We're not going to have the June meeting. I will be out of town. We're going to focus heavily on our committee meetings so that we can still continue to work on business. And then we'll have a July meeting. It's my annual family vacation. I've Zoomed in every year for the last 4. So the executive committee told me I could actually have the week off.
Well, and we could use the month to really, we've staffed our committees now. We've reinvigorated the district improvement committee that Jeremy and I are on. And so it would be good to just sort of say, look, we already got an hour and a half budgeted into our lives. Let's put some more meaning into this so that we can help the people in our district.
This is a continuation of what we already agreed to depend on the committees more and not try to get everything done during these meetings of the entire board. So. And if you remember last year, no one wanted to vote on anything without Catherine here to answer questions, so it's.
Even though it was on the screen, yeah.
Before we jump into the next topic.
Sure.
The city did receive another restore grant. So for the DeSales project, we received $1 million grant for that. Okay, now 3 restore projects happening in the city. The one that Dave and Wendy have over on Middle Street, the one on the corner that Bob has, now this project. So we'll have 3 restore projects happening.
And yesterday we closed on bank financing for Middle Street, so we're going forward.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Hammers are going in today.
Excellent. The Lakeview team is here. Do you want to pause and bring them in, or would you like to try and fit governance in real quick since we only have that?
Is it quick? Because it is now 8:01, so, okay, governance.
Yes.
So.
Dave and I met.
Yeah, we had a committee meeting. It went well. We talked a little bit about going over the bylaws and tightening those up, looking at our mission statement as well, and what is needed there. I'm going to take any further than that.
And we started to talk about planning, strategic planning. You know, you guys have given me a lot of information. I'm going to put together something for the next 3 years, but I think it's really important to go through these exercises with each of the board members and each of the committees so that we can really hone in our focus and be more productive. Yep. Excellent.
That was quick and easy. So if you want to bring in Lakeview.
Okay.
Maybe there's something I should point out. I own Lakeview Geneva, which among other things owns this building. We are not connected to Lakeview Mental Health in any way.
Y'all need help, but you're not perfect. You're doing on Mill Street.
But the number, building's gonna stay as is, we're gonna keep in the same footprint, we're gonna have 9 apartments, 4 of them will be affordable housing, and the rest will be market rate. Hope to be done by early next year. We shall see, as always. Delays in it, yes.
The joys of
It's
development.
very difficult.
We hope to have it done this year.
That's the plan.
Very hopeful that our science building at HWS goes quickly. We shall see. Imagine the drama of moving professors from their offices that they've been in for 30 years. And all the books and papers that they never recycle.
Where are you moving to your building?
Oh, they're not my building. I'm ready to move out of my building. They're renovating some other spaces, but yeah, pretty every nook and cranny of HWS that could be an office is now an office because they're tearing down mid-semester the building that is on the quad and then rebuilding a new one closer that will actually frame architecturally the same style.
Building they tearing down.
Eden. Yep. They're replacing the Fish Center. Oh.
Yeah, wherever you'd like to sit, I can, I've got the presentation up there. Everyone, I'd like to introduce you to Kathy Lovejoy, who is the CEO of Lakeview Health, and she brought her team with her as well.
That's great.
If anyone who's met me knows I'm the chatty one, I'll sit.
Hey, Kathy, shall I go ahead and pull up your presentation?
Sure, and I brought my own little cheaters because I can't see that far away.
Right.
Nice.
Go. It's only up on the one screen. Is that okay for you, Kathy?
It's okay for me. I have my own set, so.
Okay.
They certainly, I get you have it, so certainly.
Yep, and you just tell me when you want me to flip the page.
Okay.
Okay.
Before we get going, again, thank you for having us. I'm Kathy Lovejoy. To see some familiar faces in the room, and nice to meet some new faces. Again, as Catherine said, I'm the president and CEO of Lakeview Health Services. I've actually been with Lakeview for 25 years, and I've worked pretty much in every level of position with Lakeview. So as you might expect, I feel strongly about Lakeview and the work that we do in 6 communities or 6 counties that we operate in. With me, I have our development partner through CSD Housing of Whitney McClary.
Morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Our managing director of housing, Rhoda Overstreet Wilson. Good morning. And our chief financial officer, Naomi Gleason. Probably prefers to be on the second. So we're here. We really are trying to inform the community the best we can about this proposal, the project. We're kind of trying to make a road to it. It's really important to us whether, really we need action from a group or not, that you see us as being communicative, transparent, and really that you see me as someone who is accessible. You reach out to me, I will get back to you. If there's something you're hearing today or heard out there, we're human beings. And when there's a missing piece in the puzzle, we find a piece. And if there's something I can do to help provide clarity or answer questions, that you know that I am accessible to you and I will be responsive to you. So that said, we want to just give you a brief overview of what we have now named the Downtown Lofts, which is utilizing the site. Yeah, rarely am I told to speak up, but
No, you're good. I just
Please
put
do,
the,
yes.
I just put the speaker in front of you so that everything that you say will be, heard by everyone on the recording.
perfect.
Mhm.
Thank you.
I often zoom in and have difficulty hearing, so.
I also have to go to a training in Albany, so I'll be listening from the car in a few minutes.
Got you. Okay, yeah, not a fun day for a drive.
No.
So again, about Lakeview Health Services, we were established in 1978 with a community residence in Naples. So housing really has been the core of our services right from day one. Since that time, we have expanded to operate in 6 counties throughout the Finger Lakes. And again, housing remains one of our core services. We have grown to provide over 600 housing units throughout those 6 counties. A broad spectrum of levels of support. So we have licensed residential beds. We have just over 200 of those now. By licensed, that means they're licensed by the Office of Mental Health and are funded also by Medicaid. They're considered rehabilitation programs. So for someone who, similar if we have an injury and we need rehabilitation to help restore our former functioning, for individuals who have had a significant mental illness, they often lose skills as a result of that illness and require rehabilitation to help regain those skills. So these programs are intended for that rehabilitation to allow for staff to help people rebuild the skills they've lost as a result of their illness. And that is what makes it reimbursable by Medicaid. So that really is the highest level of care that we have. We don't employ clinical staff. We don't have doctors on staff. They are still voluntary. People are still able to come and go, but they have graduated levels of supervision from 24/7 on site, sort of in that old, I don't want to say the traditional group home model, to apartments that we rent that are literally scattered throughout our communities that we rent from landlords, and staff just go in and provide services to folks in that environment. Again, the goal is for us to go into the environment they are going to be living in to help them learn those skills in that environment. So that's what a licensed residential bed would be. Moving on from there, as people graduate from that level, they then move into permanent supportive housing. That's not licensed by the Office of Mental Health, but is regulated still. We are contracted through the Office of Mental Health. They still do regular visits. They go into the apartments to make sure that, the settings that folks are living in, the services we're providing really are supporting their success living in the community. But otherwise, the lease is in their names. And really, unless they said so or we said so, no one would ever know that they were receiving services from Lakeview. We do have 16 HUD subsidized beds in Wayne County. It's a project we've had since the early 90s. Again, it's two buildings, again, fully independent. People are required to have a disability to live there, but otherwise some have staff that support them, some don't. But we do have that program. And then in these types of buildings that we've been building over the last 15, 16 years, we have 66 strictly affordable units in 3 different buildings at this point in time. Beyond our housing, we have a variety of other community support services. We have a large care management, case management program, and we have a pretty popular psychosocial group here in Ontario County. They're very active in community events. They will be walking in the suicide walk this weekend at Sampson. Again, they're out and about and very active in the community. And just in terms of a number of served, in 2024, we served just over 1,300 individuals throughout our programs. So that's a bit about us. Next slide, please. About some of our services. So anyone who is referred to any of our housing programs is required to go through a screening. For either our licensed or our supportive housing programs, they have to go through what's called a single point of access. The state created this entity that every county has to provide. And so it's a complicated system. It's complicated just describing it here. Every county has to provide essentially the front door so that folks have one place to go to access these services, and that person essentially screens them for eligibility and then refers them on to the housing provider, either of their choice and or that best suits their current needs. That referral would then come on to us. We also screen and evaluate the level of housing need they may have. Of course, everybody wants their own apartment. We help them get furniture. We help pay a stipend. That is the goal, of course, for lots of people, and for good reason. So, but we do screen to make sure we're not setting someone up for failure, that we're bringing them in the level of support that will help them be as successful as possible, and then work with them to graduate up through the levels of housing. Again, they have to, for folks in a building like this, and frankly, again, in the community in general, when they're in their own housing, they have to show the ability to live independently. We don't provide meals for them. They have a kid, they have the same apartment anybody else in that building has, and they've got to be able to maintain it. Now, we may be going in, helping them with cleaning. We might be helping them with meal planning. Healthy meals are sometimes a real challenge because, as we know, healthy food's expensive. And so often folks don't have the healthiest of diets. And so helping them plan for healthy diets, helping them understand where the resources in the community are, where they can access healthy food, is often something we work with folks. Of course, many of them, and I think I say this maybe further down or someplace else, many of them are looking to get back into the workforce or do volunteer work to sort of dip their toes into getting into the workforce. Many are going back to school or finishing their GEDs, things along that line. But the work is really to become, really fully functional members of the communities that they choose to live in. I did note here, now again, as I said, the core service population we serve, and for this building in particular, is individuals with a primary diagnosis of what's called a serious mental illness. And that sometimes people hear that language and think, oh my gosh, that's scary, that's in the news, bad stuff happens. Oftentimes the folks that we're seeing on the news or in the stories are the folks who don't have supportive services. Our top 3 diagnoses that we serve, and again, this is based on the data just on who we are currently serving right now, is depression, post-traumatic stress disorder, and anxiety. So again, these are all very common mental health issues that everyone deals with. We're just talking about a spectrum here. And these are folks on the far end of the spectrum who really, based on the severity of the symptoms, need help in regaining the ability to live independently. So as we've talked about, there are on-site staff in buildings or projects such as this. Those staff really are during the day, again, just working with the folks that are in supportive units, although oftentimes they're also a resource to just folks that are renting units in the building. It's just sometimes nice to have someone you can go to. You've got a maintenance issue, there's someone to go to. Any number of things they come to us for. Overnight, we do have 24/7 staff. As I've said, or will say, and we'll keep saying, security is really important to us. As I noted, people with histories of trauma are one of our top populations. These are folks who have been victimized, they've been victims of crime. Safety is very important to their ability to be well and healthy. So we take that really seriously. So when we talk about having the buildings fobbed and locked, that really is so that we can control who's coming into that building. So someone comes to the door, they ring the person they're there to see, that person comes down, lets them in and remains with them. We really don't want people just randomly circulating the hallways unattended, safely there just to keep track of who's coming and going. If we've had a visitor come in and they've created problems for somebody, we may not allow them back in the building. And so staff are there really keeping track of who's coming and going.
So does the tenant let the person in?
Yeah.
Does the staff?
The tenant does.
So you really have no tracking.
We do, because staff are right there by the front door. Yes.
And can I say something also? And this is just a me thing. When I've rented apartments, I've never rented an apartment without security on the front door. And granted, when here in Geneva, it's a smaller city, but I don't rent an apartment that doesn't have to have, that just lets anybody in, because you don't want somebody lurking around a corner.
You'd be out of luck with all our apartments then.
I know.
No cameras, no security.
Yeah.
That's the way we roll.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, and I
We have codes and cameras in this building.
That's the way you roll.
Well, and I think this isn't about having us be a one size fits all. This is about creating a spectrum of options for people to pick what best meets their lifestyle and their desires. So, there are absolutely people who wouldn't want to live in a building that's locked or has cameras, and that's their 100% right to have access to housing like that. So, that's our model, and no judgment. There are many other housing options out there that are very high quality. Again, we're renting from them.
Just a real quick,
Uh-huh.
I'm sorry. How big are these units, the single units, of square footage, you know?
They are
They're typically about 800 to
Thank you.
1,200 square feet. So, and this building will mostly primarily be one bedrooms. It would be about 1,000 square feet. So around there.
yeah.
I again request that she be allowed to give her presentation without comments.
Sure,
Or
and we'll make
questions.
sure there's absolutely time.
Yeah, and then we can do questions
Yeah,
extra.
yeah. Thanks. So we've talked about goals. Again, the people who are applying, they're on wait lists right now. They're already in our communities. Again, the single point of access by county is looking at folks within these counties. Now, we all know folks don't, stay within the bounds of a county and not move between them. But each county has their single point of access and is pretty protective of the housing stock within those counties. So we have people sitting on wait lists right now waiting for housing like this. And some of those may be folks that you see are struggling because they don't have the safe housing or the support to be as successful in the housing they're in. Again, and beyond that, beyond just the oversight we have on site in that building 24/7, we do have state oversight agencies that are coming in and monitoring the operation of the building. So we've mentioned the Office of Mental Health. They will come in regularly. They're funding part of the services in that building, so they have oversight. And the funding for really the construction of this building would come through low-income housing tax credits. So there's also investors involved. There are other regulatory bodies that oversee the operation of the building under those requirements. So there's lots of eyes making sure that we deliver on a project that we say we're going to deliver on. Advance. So just some history, briefly on our development up to date. You can slip to, we've got 3 projects here, and there's a lot there on that slide. But these are our 3 primary projects. We've actually developed 4. The first one we did was in 2008 and was a 38 bed. It's called a single room occupancy. We don't list that here because it's not one of those mixed use where we've got a mix of affordable housing and supportive units. So these are our 3 to date mixed use buildings that we have built. So in 2010, we built Seneca Falls. It's called Lakeview in Seneca Falls. It's called Lakeview Heights. And the mix there, it is also operated staffed 24/7. There are 26 of the treatment apartments that I mentioned earlier. There are 14 strictly affordable units. They have a mix of studio, 1-bedroom and 2-bedroom units. And there's dedicated exercise community and there's kitchen training space. So folks, if they're rebuilding their cooking skills, we've got a training kitchen to help them do that. That building has also won some architectural design awards. So that won a 2011 AIA Rochester Award for Design Excellence. In 2017, we moved on to Macedon and built Woodland Commons. Anybody who's driven down 31 has likely seen this building. This is the 60-unit mixed-use building, also 24/7. There are 18 treatment apartment units in that building. There are 12 what we call SPSRO. That's a supportive SRO. It's really just an OMH acronym that means not a whole lot to the rest of us. It's a supportive unit. So this building that we're talking about would have likely 30 SPSRO units. And again, those are funded through the Office of Mental Health. In this in Woodland Commons, there are 30 affordable units. They are all 1-bedroom units. And there's dedicated community and outdoor space. That actually the picture is the courtyard of that building. That building has gotten a couple of awards. They received the 2017 AIA Rochester Design Award, and they also got a LEED for Homes Gold certification, which is for energy efficiency design. And most recently, we opened West End Heights in Ithaca. That was opened in 2021. That also is a 60 apartment mixed use building, also 24/7. You'll see the theme. There are 20 treatment apartment units there, 18 ESHI. ESHI stands for Empire's Supportive Housing Initiative. That is really the state's initiative to help address homelessness and the need for housing specific for those who are experiencing homelessness. So there are 18 units there. Some of you will have seen on our website, and it's made some of the articles. Those beds have a mixed population. They aren't simply for folks with mental illness. There are folks designated also with substance use disorder and HIV/AIDS. So although this project has additional population served, the building we're talking about here in Geneva is strictly those with a serious mental illness, not dedicated specifically to those populations. There are also then 22 affordable units in that building. They are all 1-bedroom units as well, and also have dedicated community and green space. This building won a number of awards. The 2022 AIA New York State Excelsior Award of Merit was received for the design. This should be another bullet here. The Ithaca Rotary Club presented the building with a Pride of Ownership award that is something that Rotary does for projects that really enhance or contribute to the neighborhoods that they are built in. And also this building got a LEED Gold certification, again, for its energy efficiency designs. And it also received a U.S. Green Building Council 2002 LEED Homes Award for Outstanding Affordable Project. This was actually a national award category. So we're very proud, not simply of bringing housing into communities, but for bringing housing that our communities can be proud of and really showcase.
Again, we're going to wait till the end of the presentation to have questions. Do you want something to write questions down so you can remember?
Oh, as long as I can ask questions later on.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Well,
Okay.
I'm not sure we'll have time for that, so.
I'll keep myself moving along. The next 2 slides are just pictures of the interiors of some of our buildings. So as you see, we really go for a lot of light, a lot of space. Our architects, beyond just being architects, do a lot of research on the aesthetics that contribute to just overall mental health and well-being. So again, bringing in nature, bringing in green space, a lot of light, taller ceilings, a lot of natural elements built into the design. And the next slide is some more pictures of interiors. And yeah, as you can see, a couple of those pictures are interior apartment pictures, so you can just see how open those apartments are as well. The next slide is just, I'll let Whitney do a brief overview of CSD's experience in housing development.
Sure. Good morning again, everyone. Whitney McCleary, work at CSD Housing. We've been doing this for about 10 years now. We do this throughout New York State. So we're based in Rochester, New York. That's what I drove in from today. Not a fun drive. There's a lot of highway traffic on the way here, so apologies for being a little late. But ultimately, our mission, and we call it mission housing, is we partner with local not-for-profits throughout New York State. So you can see some of the cities where we've done projects in. We've done a few in Rochester. And those pictures there, the top one is pretty significant right now. We're finishing up 164 units of affordable housing with 95 supportive units of housing right on Main Street in downtown Rochester. We started that project a couple years ago, and it'll be finished in August. And we're really proud of it and know that it's going to bring meaningful quality units to the community. The project right below it is 270 on East. Not sure if you guys have heard about the inner loop coming down in Rochester, but that was a major project in which we brought down a highway system and created parcels to build housing. And we were lucky enough to do one of those projects. That's 112 units of affordable and supportive housing. And Kathy talked about Eshai. So those in that building, there's 35 units for frail elderly and 20 units for veterans in that building that we service as part of the supportive housing. We've done, says up there, 19 projects and over 1,400 units. Thank you. And we have about 1,000 projects under construction or in pre-development. So this is just to show we're the development consultants for this project. We're right along with Kathy and her team throughout this project. We've been very successful doing it in big boroughs like Queens and Brooklyn, but also doing it in small cities like Boston Spa, Amsterdam, Saratoga. So just to show some of the experience that we've been able to do. And this is all we do. We only do affordable housing. We only do supportive housing. And again, we've always partnered with a local not-for-profit because they understand the local needs. And we are experts in the development and the construction side. And it's a great marriage to produce these projects. So we can go to the next slide.
So a quick overview. As we've noted, the location that we are proposing is 218 Genesee Street, which is the current location of the Finger Lakes Times. That parcel is 1.04 acres. The proposal is 74 units, mixed-use building, 4 2-bedroom apartments, and 70 1-bedroom apartments. There would be, of course, staff or space for the staff that will work there on site. There is community space, so community room, outdoor patio and green space, and fitness wellness rooms on every floor. Currently, there are 26 parking places planned. I say currently because this is an ongoing conversation. We hear feedback and we hear the concerns that are had around the amount of parking. We have done studies about the utilization of parking in our other buildings, and this is consistent, but we do hear the comments and the concerns about that. So we are engaging in just some further evaluation of that and likely bringing in just some other expertise to make sure that we are providing adequate parking. Next slide. So the overview, the tenant mix that we would be looking at, again, we are doing, the market study does show that we can do a range of income levels for the building. So we have 6 units will be reserved at 50% of the area median income, and you can see those income ranges there. And for that range, the rents would be about $875. 20 units will be reserved for 60% of the AMI, and rents would be between $900 and $1,100. 11 units would be up to 80% of the AMI, and again, the rents there would be about $1,250 to $1,450. And of course, the 37 units of supportive housing are reserved for folks with the mental health diagnosis and would have subsidies both through client rents, but they have, again, everybody in the building has to show income. So they would then have those units. And again, also included are just by data that we were able to pull, our the ranges of Geneva salaries and how we feel like folks would be able to qualify for the various rent levels in this building.
Yeah, and just real quick, I thought this was an important slide to show the incomes and the rents, knowing that this is the business community we're talking to, that many 37-hour units will have. You can see the different income levels there, but these will be people that will hopefully be patrons of your business. These will be people who are making up to close to $80,000. So want to show that this is truly integrated housing. It's a range of incomes. There is a supportive housing piece, which those people will be lower income, but half the building will be exactly these incomes displayed here.
Thanks. Next slide. So some of the benefits really quickly, again, this project is anticipated to be about a $38 million project. We have already a conditional award of about $1 million of capital funding secured.
11 million.
How much did I say?
Oh, million.
Oh, 11 million, 2 ones.
And that's important. The life cycle of these projects is long, you know. We are going and applying for all these funding to pay for the capital to build this building. And so it's significant that we've already secured some of the funding in which we might have a better ability to be when we apply for these competitive funding sources, that we already have some funding at the table. So it might go a little quicker. We'll be more competitive. And I did hear a lot, and I'll take this one if that's okay, Kathy, on the tax estimate. So heard a lot of people and saw some chatter on Facebook about the pilot and this project trying to avoid taxes. And I do want to spend a little time explaining this. So in market rate housing, where you are not restricting your incomes and agreeing to restrict your incomes, you can maximize the rent and maximize the net operating income for that project. Because we're receiving state funding, we are agreeing to restrict the rents to those rents that we just showed you in the slide before. Because of that, our income is reduced. We're pretty much capping the amount of money that we can bring into this project. So because of that, you guys are all business owners. You have income, you have expenses, and because we have less income, we're able to afford less expenses. We're able to afford less taxes. So there is a pathway called 581A, which is a tax abatement legislation at New York State, in which there's a pathway in which we can apply for that, because they know that all affordable housing projects are in this same boat where they are going to be capped in what their income and capped in what they're able to pay for property tax. But with that said, we are agreeing, and we would prefer not to go to 581A and work with the local IDA and come up with a number that works for everyone. And we've already applied. We're in the beginning phases of that, but we believe our tax estimate will be about $50,000 per year, and that will be a 2% annual escalation. And so we've submitted our pro forma and things like that. I mean, what people should understand that these projects aren't huge money makers. You know, the state is giving you capital to build them, and you're restricting your rents. And because of that, you know, our expenses are going to go up probably 2 to 5% every year. Our rents are only going to go up 2%. So you can see that at some point in year about 15 or 16, we will potentially be at negative, somewhat negative cash flow, in which we can go back in and try to recapitalize and get more funding for the project. But this isn't a scheme in which we're trying to avoid taxes or things like that. It's simply because we are restricting the rents and keeping our income at a lower level that we are not able to afford the full market rate taxes. So if rents were going to be $3,000, you know, an apartment, and we were able to be fully assessed at that, that's one story. That's not the case here. And that's why there's state legislation for a pathway, but we prefer to use the local IDA as a pathway for tax abatement. So just want to clarify that. And there will be a 2% escalations every year for the property tax as well.
So when you're, oh, sorry, wait,
Okay, we're
follow my own rules.
Anything else on the slide you want to touch on?
That during construction, there'll be about 75 construction jobs between Lakeview staff. We believe there'll be about 10 permanent jobs. It's important. We talked about bringing more density downtown. A local operator right here that you guys can see and meet. Something that was important when we met with the mayor and city council and city staff early on was bringing streetscape onto Castle. So we can talk a little bit more about that once we show some pictures of the building, but we can go to the next slide.
And the next slide.
So one thing I think is important is to recognize the scale of this site. It's over an acre. And so you can see some of the surrounding buildings that, you know, this site pretty much takes up an entire block. And so that's been another, I guess, challenge that we heard in some of the public comments around density. And we recognize that some of these other buildings are much smaller parcels. And so some of these buildings might have 8 to 10 units. And you can see if you really multiply that across the scale of this site, that we actually are probably right around the ballpark of some of these other buildings nearby. And the zoning that was created for this probably didn't really account that there are some sites that would have frontage on 4 different blocks. And so those are some of the variances we're going after, because we do want to have parking. And so if one of the variances we're seeking is setting back on Elm Street to create that parking, when the code says they want frontage on every side, obviously if we had frontage on all 4 blocks, there would be no space for parking. So those are some of the variances that we were seeking with the zoning board, to be clear. But I do think it's important to show how massive, how big the site is, and that the density that we're bringing to the site might sound like a large number for 74 units, but as I mentioned before, I'm doing 164 units in downtown Rochester on Main Street on a site that is about the same size, about an acre. So we believe that, and from the housing study, that there's a housing crisis within Geneva. I looked at apartments.com, I looked at Zillow, where I only saw about 4 to 5 apartments listed there. And so looking at the market study, we believe that 74 units is a good amount because there's a demand for these high quality units you saw from the pictures. And so that was really the onus of starting this project when we identified the site. So I don't know, Kathy, if you wanted to say anything else about this slide.
No, we can move on to the next. And this is simply a rendering you saw on the opening slide of the Castle Street frontage would be right there at street level is where it would be anticipated to have where the staff offices would be. And then of course, apartments up above. Next slide provides just some basic floor plans. On the first floor, of course, as we've talked about, there would be staff office spaces as well as common areas. So there is a large laundry facility that would be available for everybody that lives in the building. There are wet refuse rooms on every floor. So folks take their garbage to the refuse room and our staff take them out to the dumpsters that would be out adjacent to the parking lot. And of course, all the upper floors are, so there are residential units on the first floor. Again, one of the variances that we are requesting, and then units on the upper floors. Next slide. Parking, we've just, again, these are some of the slides we've taken from our development team. This shows where additional public parking is available. We certainly are trying, we understand that's a hot commodity. Parking is a hot commodity for every community, and we certainly don't want to tap it any more than it's being tapped. But we have certainly included here where there is public parking around the site. Next slide now. Project timeline, I think Whitney, you wanted to speak to?
Sure. And can we go back to the previous slide? I just want to talk a little bit more about the parking. So you can see there, we've used past history to determine the number of parking spots we believe will serve this project based on our current projects. And so that's where we came up with that calculation that you see there, and actually are going 2 spaces over. We are, honestly, we're really looking at this a bit, but there is substantial amount of public parking nearby. One thing, and when we get to Q&A, one of my questions will be to you guys is, when is peak parking in downtown? And we can go and do some timestamp photos and understand exactly what the demand is, but we are incentivized to not build something that doesn't work. And so we don't want to build something where tenants don't want to rent from us because they don't have a parking spot. So we are more incentivized than anyone to make sure that we're building adequate parking for this site. We believe we have, but again, we're going to be doing an additional parking study and relooking a bit and seeing if we can carve out a few more spaces. But I do believe that there is a housing challenge within Geneva and Ontario County. I struggle to see a little bit where there's as much of a parking challenge, but that's some of the dialogue I think we can have in the Q&A that I hope to understand a little bit better. But we can go to the next slide. This just shows, as I mentioned, that it is a long path from now into potential construction. We executed the purchase sale agreement back in November. We submitted for our site plan ZBA applications. We anticipate potential site plan approval sometime in July. Again, we had that first, our second meeting, which was a public hearing. The public hearing will remain open. We'll go back in June, and we're also going to be providing more information to the planning board to make their decision on site plan. Our funding comes from the state, which is HCR, Homes and Community Renewal. Again, this is a program that is happening throughout the state where they're providing capital for these projects. This will be an application, so we're not guaranteeing funding. Just to give you a sense of the competitiveness, about 1 in every 3 applications win. And so it's not a home run that this timeline will be accurate. We will I think we are competitive again, because as we establish some of the funding, we have a lot of good things going for us, but it's not a guarantee. But if we are able to get funding sometime this fall, we would start construction this summer, and we anticipate about an 18-month construction period. And so, winter of 2028 would be when we'd open the doors. And I'll tell you, if you've never been to one of these, we call them ribbon cuttings when we actually open the doors. It's an experience, because you're seeing people's eyes light up and seeing the quality of their housing, and they've never anticipated in their lives that they could have, this quality of a unit. And, we're doing one of these in September for my downtown Rochester project, but it's a special place. And we usually invite tenants up to talk about their stories and about how they've had challenges in the past. And now that they have a key and they know they have a safe place to come to, and quality of life within that building and community that's been created within that building, it really is life-changing. And that's why I go back to, we truly do mission housing, and it's important to us. We believe in it. We'll fight for it. And I'm hoping that at some point we can, at the planning board, there were a lot of, property owners, a lot of homeowners. And I do think hearing the story of the renters within the community who are having challenges, that's a story that remains to be told. And I look forward to having dialogue with those renters, and making sure that we are taking all the data in and putting the best project forward, and that it becomes an asset for the community. It's something that everyone can have pride in. And I will stop talking there.
It is an experience. I mean, I spoke to it as well with the city council, because even hearing Whitney talk about it, I get goosebumps every time. Sometimes seeing someone brought to tears is, it is, that it meant years worth of work is worth it when you see someone truly having an environment that they can call their own home, that they can feel safe, and sometimes for the very first time have a place that is theirs. And then they can, if you don't have that housing, you can't think about healthcare. You can't think about some of the things that we just are able to do without even thinking about it. So it is incredibly powerful, and it's important to us that our communities and our neighbors get to be part of that experience, because folks really don't take that experience lightly. So we've taken quite a bit of more time than planned, but certainly can take some questions.
So can I start? Okay.
You're asking me, remember?
Yes, can I start? Thank you. We're usually more casual, yeah. So a lot of people have come to me, and they're concerned because they feel like these apartments are going to be used for short-term turnaround for alcoholics and people with drug issues. Can you speak to that?
Yep, this is considered permanent housing. So, and again, the primary diagnosis has to be a serious mental illness. Now we know there's lots of people without a mental illness. They have a substance abuse disorder, and co-occurring disorders are absolutely come with the territory. But they have to have a primary diagnosis. And again, it is permanent housing. So they are going to have a lease. They're going to have a year lease, and they have to, for those in our program, they have to engage in that program. And that means working with our staff. That means being connected with be it clinicians or whoever it is that's helping them stay healthy and active members of the community. This is not a treatment program at all.
Okay.
No, this isn't a shelter. This isn't transitional housing. These people will go through a robust screening process and sign a year lease. Just as any environment, I know there's some property owners here and have rent to people in the community. If you guys have an issue with someone, we would use that leverage the same tools that you guys have as far as eviction and things. We hope it doesn't get to that point, and we try to, make sure our staff is walking the building and building a relationship with these people, how to prevent that. But yeah, the same way, anyone in multifamily or small buildings work with, have people get behind the rent, have people who might cause a nuisance to their other neighbors. It won't be perfect. We can't perfectly predict every single human behavior, but all we can do is put together as robust of a staffing plan and some of the access control and things that Captain talked about. But there will be challenges within any housing community, whether it's market rate or not. There's challenges, and we will deal with those when they come up. But this isn't a shelter where people are coming in and out and things like that.
Okay.
People will be screened. there's a robust income verification process and it takes a long time for someone to get the door because of the state regulations behind the bidding process.
Speaking of state regulations, how many years do you have to maintain the building? Like you'll lose your funding if you don't maintain the building to codes.
It's usually a 30-year regulatory period. So again, most of these projects at year 15, they become some financial challenges where you can go back and get additional tax credits to come in and do some renovations and update the building. And that's typically the way it goes at year 15. But we're signing a regulatory agreement with the state to keep these rents and to agree to certain living standards. The same way every property owner has to get a C of O from the local code enforcement, we'll have to do the same thing. So there's a lot of protections to make sure that the building remains upkeep.
Okay, this question is for you, Kathy. How many units do you have currently in Ontario County where you're renting houses, apartments for people?
We have just strictly supportive, scared to say supportive housing. We have 64, actually, sorry, 84.
84
The state
not
just added 20 more beds this year because of the demand.
in Ontario
Almost
County.
100 people on the wait list.
How
Yeah,
many of those are in Geneva?
I could get that for you. I don't have that off the top of my head, but I could get that for you.
Okay, yeah, because I would like to know how many are in Canandaigua versus,
Yeah.
the seat of the county is in Canandaigua. And now granted, this has been years ago, but this is something that's brought to my attention on a regular basis, is that the county shoves low income towards us. Now, we're not looking at low income, we're looking at affordable housing. And of course, well, I think the majority of Geneva, I mean, because we are actually lower than the county rate, a lot of people fall into that category, including professors at HWS.
Yeah.
So, okay. And then zoning, Board of Appeals, right? So part of the thing that I've been seeing that's been going around, that building is currently zoned for 5 stories. And the density is currently not over dense as far as it goes. We're talking about,
12 units.
I'm sorry.
Density is supposed to be 12 units.
The zoning.
Yes, but it's not for a building that's that
It
big.
needs a variance because it's not legal.
It needs a variance because it's over 12 units.
Right.
But the fact that you could
Too
put
dense.
12 units on a 1 acre site is, that would be quite the luxury apartment.
It needs the parking.
So how many parking spaces do you have, Dave?
I'm in a different area.
How many parking spaces do you have?
Different area. We're exempt in CB because we're existing.
So, actually, yeah,
Maybe
Zero.
what would be helpful is for you guys to go through the variances that you're requesting so that people can understand what. There has been a lot of recent changes in zoning, actually 2 changes in zoning in the last 3 years, which allows for some of this. And then for people that aren't familiar with planning board and zoning board processes, what you're going through there, I think would be helpful. And with that, I do have a 9 a.m. So I have
I
to
was
go,
gonna
but
say,
it's
it's
no
really
reflection
about, I
on
mean,
you
if
guys.
you want us to come back, I mean, I want people to have a voice, but I also know we were really pushing into your meeting time and everybody's schedule. So I will leave it to really all of you and how the time here is best spent. for you.
do you feel like we can keep going?
Yeah.
Yes, so
Then we
board
come-
first, please. Board first, yes.
Well, if you don't mind staying, I think, I don't want to ask you to come driving out from Rochester again,
No, I'm-
so.
I'm at Washington Street.
Okay.
But yes, poor Whitney.
Okay, because I do think that while this meeting is visitors to the meeting, it is a visitor to the meeting, and it's not an open meeting for people to discuss, but I really appreciate the people who took the time to come here, and I would like to be able to answer their questions.
But I would like to also point out, we are not the ZBA.
Yeah.
So getting into an argument over how much of a variance is asked for is not really appropriate.
If actually incorrect things are provided, we need to respond.
Yes, agreed.
So, yeah, Lauren, I don't have in front of me the variances, but a big part of it, if you look at our site plan, is the fact that we have frontage on 4 different sites. The CBA, the CD5, I think, and we're talking to actually the consultants who actually came up with the zoning regulation, but I believe that they didn't potentially anticipate a site this large. in downtown. And so I think that's where some of the challenges come.
You're aware of the OEO site, correct? Down the street.
Yes, they'll need
Yep,
to have a
yep.
zoning variance as
Good
well.
question, but,
Bottom line is we have other sites with marketing for decades that are this big.
Thank you. I'm sorry I didn't know that for the interruption. That is part of CB5, the OEO site, as well as the building that you're looking at is part of CB5, which is also part of our like downtown business area. Yeah.
No, I understood. The point I'm making is like some of the buildings right next to, it's right adjacent to the site. Again, I'm trying to get data on how many units are in there, but it looks like they're like 8 to 10 units, but they're on, 0.1 acres. And so if we take 10 units on 0.1 acres, you multiply that across a full acre, that actually would be a lot more dense. And so I think that's where we believe that this site isn't too dense for us.
There's a distinction in the zoning code that we fought hard and bid to retain and to have our existing downtown historic district allowed to continue. You guys are doing something different and therefore you're held to a different standard. You cannot compare the existing district, which has one set of rules in the zoning code, which the bid fought for, with what you're proposing. It's apples and oranges. And that's how it was looked at by the community. That's how the council looked at it. And that's how the zoning code was finished after the input from bid. We went through this fight for years.
We're going in front of the zoning board again. We'll talk through all the branches we're going through and the board will make a decision. So.
Right, but it's apples and oranges. It's not the same thing.
Again, this is not the point for this.
This is, yeah.
Right, really respectful. We are here, again, in the spirit of transparency, to do whatever we can to communicate and dispel misinformation. We trust the process that the city has, which includes people having the ability to come out and share their comments. We respect that, and we are just trying to allow the process to take place. We respect it. We respect the concerns. All we can do is speak to our proposal and allow the process to play itself out.
I just have a.
Yeah, please go ahead. Because my question would be, can you explain to us the impact on the police and fire department and by extension, the neighborhood? As we're adding more people and we have several units going in, larger units going in. And also, can you talk about, and if you don't have that information, the average number of police and fire calls to your facilities?
Oh, sure, I would certainly get it.
Okay.
And historically, I have, up to this point, each of our buildings has involved moving people from one established program into this building. And those rates of incidents and use of emergency personnel reduced. This is actually brand new beds, so we don't really have the data to compare what that is to now. But we certainly can get you some of that information on our other buildings. In terms of our relationship with police and frankly fire, but police I'll start with, we work really closely with the local police departments. And oftentimes because of our building having interior and exterior cameras, my goodness. Police often reach out to us to see if a crime they're investigating may have been caught on one of our cameras, because essentially our entire perimeter, which goes up one side of the street and down the other side of the street on 4 streets now, may catch something that they are investigating. And certainly we've heard the concerns about the existing crime in that area, and potentially just the nature of having exterior cameras may help the police combat some of those things that, of course, everybody knows are happening, but cannot really get the proof of them happening or who's involved. So we work really closely. We have some police departments that actually have an agreement with us to have remote access to our cameras. So we really want to partner with but all emergency personnel to really, again, add to the safety of the neighborhoods, not add to the concerns of crime.
Jeremy?
Kind of changing gears for a hot second. What is the is there such a benefit for you guys to have this operation happening at the Castle Street site versus somewhere like on Highland 20, where there's more food, parking, recreational, they can walk somewhere if they had to? What about downtown makes it the spot for you?
A few things, and I've seen the properties that have been suggested, and we've been vetting property for years. The development here in Geneva has been a priority for us for quite some time. And those properties, number one is essentially on the side of a hill. And although there may be some resources there, they too they're on a busy highway. They're not the healthiest of resources.
Sure.
Frank, and West Washington Street, again, yes, it's near our offices, which we've outgrown and are looking to relocate those as well. I don't know if anybody's tried to cross preemption at the end of West Washington Street, but it is taking your life in your hands in a vehicle, let alone trying to cross that intersection. So there's a number of reasons that we really haven't found them ideal. Frankly, all of the work that's been done here, the richness and the vibrancy of what is being created here, access to arts, access to the lake, access to parks and green space, and potentially employment opportunities, really does make this a great location for folks. It helps them we're talking about creating the ability and connection to being an active member of a community. It's hard to do that when you're sort of put out in a more isolated location. So that really is why we feel having that access here, and frankly, bringing in architecture that complements, doesn't necessarily replicate the architecture here, but complements it and could potentially bring awards and attention to the community, feels as though it adds to the unique urban goal. It seems to add to some of these cities' goals and priorities, both in its comprehensive plan and just, again, the desire to have a win in bringing housing here to the downtown area. I think it really could add to the vision that is starting to form here.
I just want to say that talking about the building, getting LEED gold is very difficult for those people who don't know. I mean,
Yeah, there's a lot of, so the state, you take the state money, you're signing up for a lot of things. So green building systems and building a stable building is super important. And the regulations behind it makes the building more expensive, but it does make it last longer and make sure we have a quality project. So it's gonna be, you saw some of the interior pictures, but even as far as the infrastructure and the sustainability of the building will be high quality, because not only because we want to, but because the state's actually gonna force us to.
yeah, so
When you vet these people, do you look into their criminal past? And is there any possible way you could put in the lease that if they have repeated issues with the police, that they would be evicted?
First, the criminal history is part of the screening process, and there's certain that just out of the gate do not pass go. So a couple, just again, very off the top of my head, sex offenders aren't eligible. Individuals with a history of manufacturing methamphetamines aren't eligible. So there are certain populations that just don't pass go. We absolutely have, for folks that violate their lease, we do move into that eviction process. And many projects like ours outsource property management functions. So those folks who manage the leases and manage the tenant relationships oftentimes are outsourced to other agencies, and we do that in-house. So we have our own team of staff who again purely manage the lease and tenant relationships and hold folks accountable for keeping in line with that lease. So we are able to, number one, make sure that our culture and our values are consistent because we're doing it all in-house. And number two, we are in there at least 1 or 2 times a week. And so folks are seeing it, they're responding. They're really not waiting for problems to get big.
Any chance they could see a roof?
And you could see a boilerplate.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And then
have a drug-free, crime-free lease done in our lease.
So you do?
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yes.
And that applies to everybody. I mean,
Everybody in the building.
everybody in the building. Yeah.
About this way, if you have one problem tenant, why would we sacrifice the livelihood of the rest of the building? We are incentivized, Lakeview will be incentivized to handle that person and make sure, somehow they got through the screening and we didn't recognize that they have behaviors that couldn't live independently in this multifamily housing. They are incentivized. They don't want to lose the other 73 units. because it's one person. So they will be on top of it, and they're incentivized more than anyone to make sure that everyone's being a good neighbor within the building to each other and the surrounding.
Bob?
Are you moving your offices from Washington down to the new office or the new building?
No, we cannot. We are limited in the mix between residential space and commercial space. So really all we can have are the staff who will be supporting on site there. We can't. And again, our staff, frankly, we have near 100 people and another 150 vehicles. So it wouldn't be, space wouldn't allow for that anyway.
And about the green space, how much green space for 74 units will you have outside?
I don't have this.
I don't know the exact square footage, but it is increasing the green space that's there now. So there will be an outdoor patio right off the main community room there for green space. There will be green space along Elm Street, kind of separating the street or the curb from the parking. But we can get you the exact square footage number.
It's 25% of the total space.
Well, my question was, is it enough for residents? You get a sunny day, and you get 74 residents looking to get outside. Will they have a place to go, or will they be, on the streets, out in front of the businesses?
I think some of both. I mean, I want to get out and walk up and down the streets on the nice days, but I know, no, I understand. But there are parks, there's the lake. I mean, right now, so I think it's a combination of nobody really solely stays on site. So 74 people in that space, I doubt it. On a good day, I wouldn't necessarily use that space if there were a lot of people out.
These are people that are going to be working and coming and going as
Yeah.
within any community. So I believe you're a property owner. And so I think it can be hard to say that every single person at a certain time is going to be outside. But yeah, we want them to be integrated in the community and access the other green spaces around us. So, but again, I get back to the point of more than anyone, if these places don't lease up because we did something wrong, Lakeview's going to be in trouble and financial trouble. And so we are incentivized based on our experience of doing over 1,400 units throughout New York State and their experience of doing the 3 or 4 projects to make sure that we are designing the building in a way in which people will want to live there and want to stay there. And we don't have high vacancy because it will really hurt the pro forma or the performance of the building. So we are incentivized to look at all these things. We aren't snapping our finger and coming up with these plans. We are doing our due diligence, and we've been at this since, say, like October, and coming up with this project. And there'll be some slight iterations along the way.
Yeah.
You mentioned that you've got you did some analysis and we need more housing downtown. And our downtown is full of buildings, historic buildings that have upper floors that aren't completely renovated with additional housing. Why would an influx of 74 units help our downtown, which we need more housing in our existing buildings? So how would that help, the city of Geneva?
I'm sorry, Whitney, you want to speak?
I was just going to say the quantity. So again, you go on apartments.com and Zillow, like 4 or 5 apartments available that was surprising to me. It was surprising to me that number was that low. We've also done an extensive market study to show the demand for the level of AMIs that we presented out here. And so to be able to do this at scale with the type of funding that we receive, it's better to find a site like this. It's hard to make our funding and the sources we use to renovate existing buildings. I'm doing in Binghamton, I have a project where we took a big warehouse, we cut a courtyard in it so we can create double loaded corridors, and we're doing 112 units. We built an addition. So there are some times where we have done adaptive reuse. We're doing Hotel Cadillac in Rochester, where it's about a 40 unit. It used to be a hotel that fell in disarray when we come in and renovated it. So it is an option in past, some of our projects, but again, to get the scale that we wanted to fully design the building. And the other part is I talk about the energy efficiency part of that the state forces you to. It's hard to renovate some of those buildings and get them up to the energy efficiency standard that the state requires. So that's another factor in our decision.
And I just wanted to make sure that you know that I've been working with the county. We're working with to renovate second floor housing here. We have a program that's going on now. The county was just awarded $2 million for that exact reason, is to renovate the second floors. And if you want more information on it, just let me know. I can share that with you.
Finger Lakes Times, the parking there is actually utilized by townspeople. Jeremy, you could probably attest to that. They were closed on Memorial Day, and I took pictures, and there was about 17 cars parked there already.
Yeah.
So we're gonna lose that parking. I know it's not theoretically our parking, but people do use it. It's not like it's abandoned when Finger Lakes Times is closed. So
And that was kind of one of my questions is, when do you think is peak demand? Or like, is it kind of these one-off events that becomes over capacity, or when on a normal day do you think is the peak demand for downtown parking?
Well, anytime the Smith has an activity, parking in town generally gets overrun.
So it's like event oriented, it's
You
not
could probably
like a normal
address
course of
this
business.
better than me.
Yeah, no, I mean, like I have 7 spots, handful of parking spots directly in front of my space. And I'm right under the picture right there. You can see it up in the upper corner. So your building is gonna be part of my building essentially. So I serve a lot of middle-aged to elderly individuals. They won't park far away to come to the shops.
What's your business?
Rooted by Amberg, EWP's Mercantile, so
Okay.
wine bar, good shop.
You are right next.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, we're very close. So the concern is, and they've expressed this to me, if their parking spots are not there, I know it's not their parking spots, it was for every city use, they won't be able to patronize my establishment. We have one handicap spot currently. So it's just, I think, something that people in town, this parking conversation has definitely been happening a lot. Even though we're years on, the road from utilizing parking, it's a concern a lot of people are having.
Yeah, and one thing we're gonna do is, we showed that map of the available public parking. We also want to update that map to show the street parking. We are actually cutting or closing 5 curb cuts along Elm and Genesee. And so, because by closing those curb cuts, the city can actually come in and stripe and create additional street parking there along both those streets. So, is it, we're gonna, again, we're looking more into the parking, but I do kind of challenge the notion that if housing is important and quality housing is important, let's work together and find a solution to make sure that we can accommodate both.
I can jump in quickly.
Jeremy, how many units in your building? There's housing above.
I don't know the number. Dave unfortunately left us.
Yeah.
So
So I mean, there's a lot of apartments in that area.
yes.
Without any parking.
Right. I appreciate it at least being put on the table. We know this is a factor, and it's a real factor for the people that are using those parking places. What we want is dialogue that's constructive, where we're partnering to put our heads together and brainstorm solutions. We certainly don't want to leave anybody feeling like we are just come hell or high water, it's going to be our way or no way. We want to be partners. We want to have constructive conversations where we can brainstorm. So this is helpful. If we knew it was a factor, it's helpful if it's on the table, we can talk about it. So please know, we want to talk about it. Sometimes there's something we can do about it, and sometimes there aren't.
Mark,
This is helpful, constructive conversation.
That's one thing I want.
One of the things we've already pivoting on is we believe there's gonna be 5 staff members from Lakeview that will need parking down there. Our 26 spots, they're gonna be permitted, so any of our residents are gonna have to come in and sign up and get a pass, so we can really track the number of usage from the apartment building. If that utilization is high and our 5 staff members need to park in one of the public parking spots, that's something we can work on. So we're already pivoting and trying to figure out a way, can we squeeze in a few more spots as well? So again, we're trying to do the right thing here.
Yeah. Thank you. I'm going to ask myself a question. So, well, actually, this is a statement. You're going to run into 2 groups. And I've been fighting with a lot of people on city council for the 25 or so years I've been in this city. They keep hiring consultants from metro areas who look around and say, oh, there's tons of parking here. So you have many people in local government thinking we don't need parking. The locals want to park right in front of where they're going. So as far as the locals are concerned, parking's a big issue. So you're just going to hear both sides.
So, and I'm going to put on, I'm a business district executive director hat. Everybody's parking in the Finger Lakes Times. If the Finger Lakes Times was open and operating at full scope, nobody would be able to park there anyway. These are not public parking areas that you're talking about. So when everybody's upset that they might lose parking, there wasn't any. That's also right. That's also part of CB5. That's part of the central business zoning. So the zoning that's here on this building is also the zoning that's there for you, and it's also the zoning that's on Linden Street. So just to make sure that I've said that out loud for everybody.
I mean, right, because I park in that lot. And like, I wouldn't park in that lot if that, whatever business was in operation there was in operation. I would have to park somewhere else.
So one of the other things too that I've done, Jeremy and I had a conversation the other day, and I've reached out to Verizon. I know that people have tried repeatedly and have hit a wall with it, but I'm trying to get them to open the space for parking, even if it's a metered parking, so that we would have those extra 30 parking spaces right downtown, right in that area. It would be tremendously helpful for everyone. Even if it's just metered between 8 and 5. And we really, like Mark said, people that are downtown don't want to walk. I think when Bob asked about 75 people in that little spot, it's a 1/10 of a mile to the lake. Why would you stay there if you could walk to the lake? I mean, not everybody has those mobility issues, or, and it's not accessible for everybody, but I think that part of this is growing pains for the city of Geneva. We want development, we want growth, we want to have more people here in the city, and these are hard issues that we have to sort our way through.
All we want to do is just help sort through some of those issues.
Your mixed use, where you have the mental health, the 36 apartments and then the regular, what is your highest building presently? With people like that in the buildings, in your existing.
3. Oh, 3 stories.
Oh, 3
No,
stories.
how many people?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Like 36.
38 out of
70,
60.
38 out of
Yes.
60, and which one is that?
That's the Weston Heights building in Ithaca.
It's a, thank you.
Yeah, and if you go to csdhousing.com, that's our website, you can see all the projects we've done. The majority of our projects are at least 50% of supportive housing, and you can see how the buildings look. You can pull up on Google and see how they fit in. But yeah, you can see like we've been doing this for a long time, and we've done this in a lot of different areas as well.
Yeah, this is an architectural question because I'm concerned with the historic district. But the photograph that you showed, it looked like the building was not in line with the existing buildings. It looked like it set more towards the street. Is that true, or is that a misperception?
I think it'll be the lot line will be about the same.
The building would be in line with the existing buildings that are
Pretty much, and we've gotten some comments about replicating or trying to replicate exactly the buildings nearby. We've been talking to the State Historic Preservation Office. They're the experts in this, and we've run our plans by them. That's why on Castle Street, we actually reduced it from 5 stories to 4 stories to fit the buildings right next to us will be 4 stories. So we are incorporating their feedback to make sure that we are building a project that will complement, again, not replicate, because that's not the intent, but complement the surrounding buildings.
And I know
It's a bit, I'm so sorry. The picture is a little bit misleading. When we walk there and kind of walk that space, part of the reason for the recess, of course, is covering the doors to the building from the weathers, but it's also so that the doors don't encroach on the sidewalk. So that was taken into consideration in the design, but it is a bit misleading in the.
Okay.
There are some things that computer generations just.
Yeah.
Tim?
Hi, I'm speaking as a business owner. So I have two businesses that will be around the corner from your site on Linden Street. So first, just say thank you for coming and the presentation and your desire for transparency. I think it's helpful, and thank you, Kat and Bid, for making this available and having this sort of conversation. I think it's important. And also with what you're attempting to serve. I think there is a need in the community for sure. But my questions around my questions around two things. And one is the parking for sure. I share with what Jeremy says. I have people tell me they don't come to my shops because they can't find a parking spot. And that's during a normal course of day, right? Tuesday, Monday through Friday. And then also on the weekends. If the Finger Lakes Times building was in full force, right? I worked there as a high schooler and that parking lot used to be full, right? So people would park around it. Understanding that, if now we're talking about, what is it, 24 spots, but you're possibly relocating that, 26, you're looking at that again. You're permitting them, let's say it's filled, you have 74 units, right? 4 of which are 2-bedroom. If they can't get a permit, they're gonna park on the street if they need to. Is that correct? They would have to.
Conceptually, absolutely, yes, yes.
So I guess my concern is, irrespective as to whether or not the Finger Lakes Times is full or not, it's almost as though what it creates is 26 spots where there will be a natural potential overflow into the street that's already somewhat constrained. So I think the resolution of that, whether it's Verizon or something else, would be very important. So I just want to make that more of a point from what I've heard. I think the second thing is around the area you've chosen and you're proposing, and the 37 supportive units. PTSD, anxiety, I think I heard that correctly. Recovering from addiction.
No, some may be.
Some
That is not a
I don't want to
requirement.
I'm
Yes,
trying to be respectful of what you're
100%. Yes, and I'm not going to say none of them will have it. We don't.
for sure.
I'm my neighbors. So yes.
So what happens? This is, I would consider, and you correct me if I'm wrong, around the corner from the fire department, around the corner from a very active area. We have music, live music on weekends. We have events. We close the street. We have very loud evenings potentially. I'm curious on where, or could there be triggering issues that could cause these people who are recovering to be either a danger to themselves, which heaven forbid we don't want, or a danger to others. How is that considered in this high stimulus, what I would view?
Sure.
And you can tell me I'm wrong, it happens a lot. This high stimulus area.
Sure. Yeah, and I number one, oftentimes for folks who really anxiety in particular, or high levels of trauma, their apartments become their sanctuary. And we certainly don't want them isolated to their apartments, but they aren't going to frequent, say, events such as this. And we have folks that thrive in that environment. I mean, we used to have art shows on Linden Street at the Smith. And we had folks that loved being part of the community, having the community come in and see their artwork. So I think it's similar. I have a hard time in sort of that high stimulation environment. And so I just choose not to go. Now, again, there are going to be folks, and I've said this, we've got some buildings that are rural that aren't really in sort of a very integrated setting. And then we have some that are. Neither is for everybody. And so allowing people options, again, some folks prefer a multi-family or multi-use above a commercial setting. Some people like a building like this. So it's providing options for folks. And for some folks, again, they will thrive. They will love having access to a community and the arts. There's a lot that is tied to wellness and recovery for all of us, and having access to those sorts of environments. So I don't think it would drive anybody to be unwell. It may, again, people are going to pick and choose whether or not they participate in it or not.
Can I get a little clarification? Because you've talked about 3 projects quite a bit. But on the webpage, I believe I saw you have 579 units.
Yes,
So,
600 this year, but.
okay, so the point is you have a lot of spaces and a lot of options. So someone's not going to be stuck. They have to go to this building. I mean,
Again, these are all purely voluntary,
Right, I do think
unless they
it's
don't
a-
follow their lease and then.
And
I
then,
do think it's a good point, and something that I think in the leasing process, we'll make sure as they're meeting with staff and applicants are applying to say, hey, by the way, here are some of the events that go on in the community, and make sure that people know what they're getting into and can self-select if they want to be, part of that downtown thriving cultural community or not. So I do think it's a valid point, and thanks for sharing.
well,
I've got
and
one.
so for me, if it's a LEED certified building, you can't hear anything in the building.
I was going to say the
So
same
yeah,
thing.
I can tell you right now, I can hear Linden Street in my house, and I've replaced almost all of my windows. But,
Buildings are really expensive because
Yeah.
you have these high quality windows and insulation things and building materials. So yeah, thanks for making that point.
And on Jim's note, I mean, there's 4 at-grade rail crossings also,
Mhm.
and the city has received numerous complaints from locals who don't like the horn blast.
Well, and again, we're across from a fire department.
Yeah.
And there's nobody on Genesee Street that doesn't eventually just stop hearing the fire whistle because it's going so often. We used to have a program literally across from the Finger Lakes Times. And again, we have a urban where we are in Ithaca. It's almost odd when I stop hearing sirens, but and so I think it is amazing how much we acclimate to our environments.
Don't you say one?
Past experience in parking. What kind of a ratio do you see with cars associated with tenants?
We, based on our current properties, and I brought them, Justin. So we've calculated the utilization of those sites, and they are as low as, we have one site that's 12% of the spaces are being utilized currently. As high as 37% is the highest utilization of parking spaces, in.
So not everybody has a car.
Right.
Exactly, and that's right now we calculated 25% of the 74 having vehicles, and then we calculated 5 of the staff. But again, those five of the staff, if they are needed by our residents, will come off the table and go to residents. So, so we feel good about it. But again, we're going to continue to look at it and see if we can add some spots. And also, I do want to see like there's 4 major parking lots around us, and I do want to see. Again, at peak times, and understand I'm from Rochester, we're the same where people like to drive up. If you're a restaurant that doesn't have parking, you're not going to be in business for long. So it's the same in Rochester. So I understand that. And yeah, again, we hope to find a solution that works for everyone, but look at the greater good and the positive impact that this project can have. And parking definitely will be a part of that.
Will your parking be public parking?
No.
So nobody can come in there except.
Right. Yeah, they will have to
Permitted
register.
parking.
Yes.
Are you
That's funny
associated with?
statement that as developers have spent millions of dollars in our downtown in the past 10 or 15 years, creating market rate apartments. We do rent to Lakeview tenants, and they're mingled within our units. I think the major concern is the heavy concentration in one area of 74 units of any type, all in that spot with very little parking, very little green space, and no place to go. Yeah, you could say they go to the Lakeview, and I would, but if you look around, people that are in these concentrated areas sit right on the sidewalk out front, and that is not necessarily the look that our businesses want out in front of the place. They want to see people moving around and spending money in the places, not hanging out and deterring the people that want to spend money to make. That's our concern. Yeah.
How many units are next door?
No, I've forgotten.
It contributes to stigma. We
think
don't
it's
want that either.
70
We
some.
want folks really being integrated and active in the community. We don't want to add to. The common theme here is we don't want to contribute to problems. We want to contribute to this diverse, vibrant community that you're trying to build. We are, if they're hovering on the sidewalk, we're shooming along ourselves. because again, we don't want to be that place everybody's hanging out.
There's things you can put at least like non-congregation and things like that, like congregating within the spaces that we've identified.
You can congregate nothing for the downtown businesses was is the concern.
Well, yeah, but don't forget that there are over 70 units right next door.
You see what's
And
out front.
we do see them sitting out front, but there's also no green space with that at all and no community space for that at all. So we want to, I mean, it's a problem and we want to make sure, and I've expressed this to Kathy, that we want to make sure that there is common room, there are gyms, there are places for the people that are in the, much better than anything we have so far. Mhm.
I would feel much more comfortable if the numbers dropped. So the amount of people living there. I was totally, absolutely 100% against this project. But once I saw the pictures of the inside and you explained a little bit more, but as he was saying before, I think 74 people in that one location. That's what I have a major problem. So if you could look into maybe getting more spaces and reducing the amount of people, you might feel this way. It's me.
And you're actually talking about more than 74 people because you're not gonna have one individual in each apartment.
And
So,
visitors.
so you're gonna be talking at least 100,
Exactly.
at least.
It's a little, I think it's just, you squeeze, it's a sardine can.
Are you involved at all with Section 8 tenants?
Sometimes,
Because that program, at least nationally, is not gonna be around, according to our president.
right, sometimes, and again, they have to, but they have to demonstrate income.
Yeah.
And one of the, I don't want to say it's a challenge, maybe it's a guardrail. Again, those income, you have to have income, but you can't exceed those income levels that we had up on the screen. So sometimes double occupancy, if you bring in 2 incomes, sometimes they struggle to qualify. So oftentimes these units are single occupancy. And we monitor really closely that we don't have one person on the lease and they move someone in on the sly. But oftentimes it's hard to, they can't just, they've got some very clear restrictions around how little they can make and how much they can make.
Just remember, the eviction process is 3 to 6 months.
Trust us, we know very well. Very, very well.
I just wanted to comment, you were talking about cameras. We installed cameras in here again a few decades ago, and in the beginning, the police used it quite a bit. And I don't have data on what's happening, but they haven't asked for film in a while. So I assume it's been effective in moving the trouble elsewhere.
Could be. Again, it'll be interesting to see what happens. And again, I worked on Genesee Street in a program we had there 25 years ago when I started at Lakeview. And it was the same sort of stuff that I've heard in public comments was happening then. And there were times the police would walk us to the car, depending on what was going on in the neighborhood. Having any types of, the police they need help. They just cannot have eyes everywhere, and they have to have some evidence of a crime or who committed that crime to be able to act on it. So again, certainly any of those that we've worked with have appreciated having any help they could get.
Yeah, and I can tell you that the police will ask on Linden Street, FLX Table and Provisions have cameras there, and they will give them access to the video feeds whenever they request. So
I actually got another question because it had come up. Maybe you could reduce the number of units. If you're going to have staffing 24/7, I assume there's a minimum number of people that would cash flow for that kind of staffing.
Frankly, we have 24/7 as part of just the funding for these beds. The vast majority of the staff are just to make sure we can cover that building, have someone on site 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
That's what I mean. So if you had 30 units, would you be able to staff it at that level?
We would still be required to.
Yeah. Would you be running a huge?
doesn't pencil out.
Right.
Yeah.
See what you're saying? Yeah. Right, we have to find, and part of this work has been finding the right mix, that we can put together the mix of the units with affordable units and have it be a financial model that's viable.
Can I just say one thing about the pilot? And you might know the answer to this, you might not. right now with the Finger Lakes Times building with the assessment, when your building is finally, when you come to the point where you're paying taxes and everything is rented, it's still going to yield as a income-based, am I saying that correctly? Income-based property. It will still pay more in taxes than the Finger Lakes Time building was paying, correct? And then that is anticipated to increase more than 2% a year. But
Yes.
Please, if you could speak to that.
I'm not 100% sure what they're currently paying in taxes, but I know our calculation is showing 50,000 a year.
Okay.
2% increase, but I'm
Yeah.
not quite sure what they're currently paying, but.
It's
I wouldn't be
less.
surprised
Yes,
if
it
it's
was
less.
based on what I saw.
Yeah.
Well, that's another point. She brought up income base. So normally people just use market. Well, what can I sell it for? That's the assessed value. It can be based on income for a commercial property also. So if you guys aren't making much income, pilot or not, that you wouldn't be paying.
And that's the 5181A path is using that income approach, which is again a path we can use, but we'd rather partner with the IDA and come up with a solution that makes sense.
Right.
We pay the bid tax on top of it.
They go out to, right? We'll be required as property owners.
Yeah, but not at 35 or 40 million. I mean,
Well, what would happen is if the IDA agrees, we can build the bid tax into that proposal.
right. That's a separate discussion. Don't tell them that.
Yeah,
See a driving bid and people coming at 8 o'clock in the morning to meetings. So
yeah.
Yeah, thanks for inviting us. Thanks for the engagement.
Yes.
And
Thank you for the time, for those that stayed considerably longer than you planned. We
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Marty, did you have any more questions? I know I was trying to keep the meeting going, so yeah. Okay, yeah.
I'm gonna leave with Catherine, even for those who are out there who will be listening later. My business cards, I've got just some general information about what our services. I've got our annual report. Again, Catherine's got the one-page overview that was given. It really, and again, it really is important to us that we are accessible. If you reach out, I will respond. So please do. It's so much easier to be able to just talk about these things directly than the stress of trying to piece together what to believe and what not to believe.
Absolutely. This has been very helpful. I think that I tried to cover everything that was asked for our district. Again, for anyone that's watching, if you don't feel comfortable contacting Kathy, contact me. I'm happy to be the middle person to facilitate a sharing of information. That's it.
We might know how to get in touch with you.
Okay.
During the meeting, but we only have 2 voting members.
Yeah, everybody's stuck out. So we're gonna stop share and we will call this meeting complete.
The coffee shop called Grounded.
Bye, Craig.
That's fine.